America is becoming the land of the slaves. As the 67% of the middle and lower middle class and the poor population of the United States of America become even more broke with even less pay, the rich of the rich try to take advantage of us by telling us that's just the way the cookie crumbles. They buy all of our housing. They buy everything. And raise the price on all the objects they're going to sell. My name is Ray, and this is the start of my new series. Political conferencing. I don't have a good name for it yet. It's going to be subject to change, but it's just my political views. So, the reason why I'm making this a series, I'm finding a lot of problems that need to get taken care of right now. Now, you guys do know that I'm recording on a phone, which is my only tool to do research on right now. So there's no way I can record myself while proving research unless I'm using YouTube on my TV. And all I would have to show you is TYT Sports and stuff relative to them, like Brian Taylor Cohen. I can't do that for one reason. That's not 100% profound evidence, because to a lot of people, that's just people talking. What about the websites and the articles that they did research on? I would love to show you guys what they are, because I read them before some of them even made their videos. So I know what they're talking about is true. I know that article is decently true, because it's not just that one article saying the same thing. However, a lot of people don't even know how to research, and that's something I want to reach out with this video series coming out to do so. Now, I want to say a few more things relative to the last 30-minute video I posted before I move on with the subject of Americans are getting poorer and more used. So, over all of my old videos, a lot of people have seen, especially if you were one of the first 30 subscribers that subscribed to my YouTube channel. If you're still here. I don't know if you are or not, or if you forgot I exist or not. Probably forgot I existed, because back then I was like, do not hit the bell, because I don't really care. You don't even have to subscribe. Now I kind of do, because I'm sharing information that I feel is very valid and important. However, I digress. Kinda. If you guys have been watching a lot of my older content, you guys will know that I didn't really have such a strong passion for politics. Back during the very start of this YouTube channel, when I got my new phone, I did not like Trump. I liked him, but I didn't. I thought he wasn't going to take away every single gun, because I didn't think that taking away guns was going to help out the problems that were already there, because I didn't know the problems. I just knew that there was problems and Trump might help. No, he didn't help at all. In fact, he didn't do shit besides steal more money and ruin more businesses, along with taking more money and ruining the psychology of our United States of America that once was slightly united and is now broken into shatters. This tattered nation that we live in is no longer going to succeed because of people like Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Florida Senator Ron DeSantis and anybody alike them with the same ideologies. Lauren Bubartha, yeah, I did have to call her that, because that's literally the only fucking reason why she's Colorado Senate, is because of her fucking boobs. Ugh. Bet you they look like two saggy watermelons that are about to mold. I digress. People like this, advocating for guns this heavily, allowing teenagers my age to get fully automatic firearms, even illegally, and still legally hold it. If I was the president of the United States, the first few things that I would do is free psychological health care. All psychologists get paid by the government instead of the businesses that they run for thousands of dollars per month. Okay? So they're getting like $60 an hour. Okay. But they're not having to be paid by the person who needs the help. So that way, more psychological health care is actually being used. Okay? And since it's free for the citizens, and the government is paying them because they're the ones printing the money, and they have all the money because they're the ones fucking inventing it, then guess what? Now that we have this cycle of psychological health care being fixed up and actually taken care of, people who want to do harm will start to think twice about their options. Now, next step, start removing all weapons from every citizen in the United States of America. Take them all from the homes. What I would do is I would put the name, the legal name of the person who had that same firearm, and put those firearms, including the ammunition for those firearms, in a specific crate and container labeled with the name of the person who owns them. When guns become legal again, because I will make them legal again, then the person who used to have those guns will have those beautiful guns back. I don't want to take away guns, because even I love guns. I love firing Glock 18s and firing 9mm rounds, along with upscaling it, and what I want to do is I want to get an SDKFC 222 and fire 20mm rounds into a still-sitting target along with the MG34 coaxial. I cannot do that in America, because if I was insane, I would probably use it to kill people. Did you know that in Sweden you can literally have tanks outside of your own house? Well, infantry fighting vehicles and APCs. The reason why is because they don't have gun crime. Despite having literally everybody in Sweden having a gun, they don't have gun crime. Because psychology was fixed, they had no guns before, and since they haven't had crime in a long time, then they decided, hey, we'll have this holiday where we all gather together, we'll drink a little bit of booze, and guess what? We'll fire our guns down the range, collectively, all together, as families, as friends, as citizens of the same state and country. Guess what America cannot do? Exactly that. Because we can't even trust ourselves with alcohol, let alone renting a car until 26. So why are 18-year-olds allowed to buy firearms? I don't fucking know. Well, I do, but I'm gonna say I don't for the benefit of my conversation. Now, the other problem that I'm seeing is, well, let me go back onto the conversation with me being the one president of the United States of America. After I take away everybody's guns, I will wait 5 years. I will make sure that 5 years go by with the lowest amount of crime the United States has ever had. And I will start by giving people handheld handguns. So, people will get their Glock 18s back, including the cops. People will be allowed to get their, well, any kind of pistol back, actually. Okay, just as long as it's not fully automatic and or can go into burst fire. Then, after 5 more years pass, I will make semi-automatic rifles and bolt-action rifles legal again. 5 more years pass, and the crime rate is still very, very low. Maybe not even 5 years into that, 3 years into that. I would be like, all right, we haven't had crime, severe crimes, we haven't had mass shootings, mass stabbings, mass killings of any kind for 10 years. Now that I see that what I've done is working, guess what I'm going to do now? You now can legally own fully automatic weapons along with tanks. Oh, look at that. The Republicans' ears perk up like a bunch of wild dogs listening for their prey. Huh? I get the tank? I get a fucking Abrams with a 120 or a 105? Oh? Yeah. Because you stopped killing people. My hand gestures aren't being seen, but they're there. You could audibly hear my hand gestures. No, I'm not gonna. Never mind. So the other thing that I want to bring up is, as I would be president, water would be free. Electricity would be free. Food would be covered and would be free. The farmers working to make their food would get paid for working on their own farm. How does that sound for you farmers? Your agriculturalness and stuff like that. Honestly, even me, here very soon when I get my own house, like an actual house, even if I'm renting it, I'll make sure as the property owner If I can grow some plants on their property, I'll tell them what it is. One marijuana plant, specifically female, so I don't have to worry about seeds in my bud. Then I would go for, potatoes, carrots, beets, celery, any kind of vegetable and fruit that grows from the ground. I would obviously get permission for doing so, but after doing so, I will continuously grow. And, well, the law that I just mentioned, because I'm attributing to agricultural needs and actually selling that food, which is something I would do. Yeah, I would take 10% of my food into my house, but 90% of the food I make and grow is going to be sent off to stores so that way people can get it. And actually, if the thing that I want to create where, so I don't know if I said this in this video or the last video, but the thing that I want to create is a system where people will get free food shipped to their door every week. Or not every week, sorry, every month. There will be a lot of food. Because with a family like mine, $600 of food is not enough. $1,200 is barely enough to last a third of the year. Barely even barely 3 months is what $1,200 of food will do for my family. Barely 3 months. She's got 5 kids, okay? I'm the oldest one. I'm the one so far down my puberty line that I don't need to consume massive amounts of food to be able to actually grow with the nutrients that are necessary to help me do so. My 2 younger sisters, who are underneath 10 years old, are. My 13-year-old and my 15-year-old sister definitely needs the food because they're the ones going through the amount of puberty and all the hormones and stuff like that is necessary to change their physical bodies, and they're the ones who need food intake to be able to help their bodies do so successfully. So, not just with that, because of puberty is the reason why they eat so much, is what I'm saying. With that acknowledged, question yourself, just like I'm questioning now, how many more other families have more than 4 kids? Because what you see, and I'll be honest with you, what you see from rich people is a maximum of 3 kids. Very rarely and exceptionally 4. How they make their money and how they are living with their kids is much different than we are. But that's a different point that I'll bring up later. They have money to pay for their kids, which is the point of what I just brought them up for. It takes, let's say, $1,000 for a kid per month. Kids are fucking expensive. I know because I am one and my mom continuously tells me about it because me and her have these kinds of conversations because I like these conversations. With what's going on, with the housing becoming more expensive, both for rent and property owning, with people not able to buy houses anymore because 67% of America is poor, these people that would show up to your door would be bringing fruits and vegetables. But before that, they would show up to your house and ask for a medical record that you legally have to provide because this is a government-based paying system that the government is giving you free food for. Kind of like food stamps, except you don't have to pay for any of the money because there is no money being used because the shit just gets shipped right to you. Well, by people to make sure the food product is healthy and good, but still. So what I would do, all of this stuff that you couldn't, put in a fridge would come in their respective boxes. The stuff that you have to put into a fridge would come on the back of a semi-truck. It would stop just shy from the block that they're delivering food to. At least one more car would be following each truck full of 5 to 8 people, and they individually would show up to multiple houses with food in crates. They would even use their car to help themselves deliver the food from the truck down to the location of where they're going. Yeah, is it a lot of walking and carrying objects? Yeah, but guess what you're doing? You're helping a non-thriving community. Right now, if I was to show you my outside of my house, which I'm going to do real quick so you guys understand the type of situations that I'm talking about. houses like these, families like these is what I'm talking about. These are the kind of people who need the help. As you can see, everybody down here is in trailer houses. So, the type of system and laws that I would pass is that food system that I'm talking about, where families like this, in this kind of scenario, which 67% of us are in this scenario, we would all be getting benefits. Consistently, every month, a group of people would show up to our front doors and literally deliver us food. 2 loaves of bread, a big assortment of vegetables, and because they have your medical record, they would not give you anything that you're allergic to. For example, if you have a family member or a couple of family members that are genetically affected by eating peanuts, they wouldn't give you anything with peanuts in it unless somebody specifically requests it. Then, I would make sure to also go out of my way to very much make sure that the people receiving these objects actually, have the ability of eating it because they're all healthy and clean objects. So let's say you want to travel across the state with the meat because there's a group of family that you're about to serve meat to. Well, not a group of families, but like large amounts of people that you're about to give the meat to. Well, this is why you would need a freezer semi-truck, is to carry that meat from one location to another without any of it going rotten or bad. And in the progress of them moving from house to house, that freezer would still be active. Every time you guys are done, getting out the food that you're delivering, you would close up the freezer to make sure it's still cold, and then you would get in your car and quickly drive to the first few houses that you see. After those houses are done, you stay on that same road. So you guys know how sidewalks wrap around each individual property zone, if that makes sense. So you have a sidewalk in front of your house and on the back of your house, but in between these 2 sidewalks are usually 2 houses. So for my house, I have a back-to-back kind of deal. So as you saw me out there in the front yard, there's my front yard sidewalk. There's no sidewalk behind my house because behind my house and the fence is another house, and then there's another sidewalk. I'm gonna for now on refer to these sidewalk positions as property lines because they guide the difference between government property and privately owned property or personal property. So they would have to go through and wrap through each property line before they move on to the next one. So with the type of position that I'm in my house, they would go across the street first, and they would get everybody on that street full of food. Then they would get their truck and then do my street, and then they would get back to their truck and do the next street next to me, and then they would do the next property line next to me, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that would help starving families get their food necessary to feed themselves. It is a necessity. It is not a want. It is a need. Now, with that out of the way, let me move on to my political conversations. And in fact, I'm going to go outside because it's becoming hot as hell in here. Probably because I'm talking so much, but also because, my little AC unit right here isn't exactly the best. And yes, my room is kind of a mess. Mental problems and stuff like that I'm still working through. Better about them, but don't gotta worry as much. So that's the other thing I want to mention. Is hopefully there's nobody back here so I don't get anybody's faces, but back there, that's a house, and in front of that house, sidewalk. And then those people from one sidewalk all the way wrapped around the property line to the other would begin delivering our food. So that way families, the 67% of us and even more, would have a supply of something to eat. And like I said, they would go through your medical records, make sure you're not allergic to anything, and not hand you anything allergic unless you ask for it. So, and they would also they would have to go into the reasoning for why you want it. Let's say you have a family member inside of your house that, is allergic to peanuts, but you have a family member that you hate, and that's the person that is allergic to peanuts. Well, then they're not going to give it to you because they'll suspect you as trying to kill your family member through allergic reactions. But what if you do have somebody in your house that's allergic to peanuts, but you don't have any beef with them or anything, and you're not that insane to kill your own family member, and you decide, well, I want a peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter and banana, then that you would be able to get your PB&B or your PB&J. You would get your peanut butter, is what I'm saying, or your granola bars or whatever has peanut butter in it. Now, one of the last things that I'm going to mention for today's first episode of my new series is, well, the end of a good era. Because it's not exactly the best era we have right now. In fact, we're kind of in a really sad time, considering all of our political leaders, literally every single one of them, don't care about us. None of them do. That's why we have Texas senators and stuff like that doing all their anti-gay bills and shit, because they don't care, nor the Democrats, but so far definitely Republicans, which is part of my conversation. So, with all that said, I have one more last thing to add on. With all of that, I think the same law for rental cars should be used when it comes down to gun purchasing. I'm surprised to hear Fox News say something like this, but they said, one of the ladies on the Fox News channel was like, oh, you know, how come we can't rent a car until we're 26, but 18-year-olds can buy a gun? Don't you think that, or buy gun? Wow, broken English. Buy guns, but don't you think that's kind of a bad thing? Do you think it should be more necessary for teenagers to not be able to buy guns until they're 26? And they shook their head, yeah, despite all of them being over 26 and one of them being under. Now, a lot of Republicans would get extremely angry about that. Oh, you can't take my guns away. I'm over 30. Okay, well, you're over 30, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect you. But if you're under 26 years old, it does affect you. And if you have a gun, it's probably going to be taken away from you unless it's a semi-automatic handheld. So, where am I getting at here? It's a good question. Where I'm getting at here is a lot of the problems that are in the world are a lot easier fixed and said than, like, a lot easier to be fixed than we tend to think, because we're taught that things are always complicated in every single scenario we get into, which causes us to overcomplicate scenarios, which is kind of, again, what those terrible government leaders and etc. rely on us doing. Because if we were all smart, if we were all geniuses, if we all cared about one another, money would not be around, politics would not be around, and I'm sorry to say this, but religion would not be around. There would be religious people, but religion wouldn't be accepted as the truth as hard as it is now. And instead of relying on thousands upon thousands of year-old ways of living our lives, we would be modernizing everything. From our phones to our hovercraft, which, again, I'm an 18-year-old kid who's got math down for a hovercraft that is more accurate than Elon Musk could fucking dream of. His wet dream is flying around in a hover car, and I could build that for him. But, you know, I'm not going to get the billions of dollars necessary to do so, because it's not really $1 billion, but, I mean, billions to produce mass quantities of them, yeah. But that's the thing. American consumerism as well. Another terrible thing. It's what's partially keeping this country dead down and deadbeat. It's the reason why 67% of us are so broke, which, keep in mind, if I remember correctly, there's over 500,000 people in the United States, correct? Yeah, well, no, what was it? It was 2.6 million people live in the United States, right? I could be wrong about that. I want to look that up, but I don't have a phone to do so. Give me a second. I'm going to go ask my sister to do it. Almost the exact number is 329.6 million people live in the United States. And if 67% of us are poor, that's over half of us. That means only 220 million people are actually decently wealthy. And out of those 220 million, who do you think are into politics? Well, a lot of them. Of course they are. Now, one of the conversations that I keep hearing from a lot of people is there's not a lot of people in our country. Well, I mean, there's 330 million people almost, exactly. So if 67% of us are poor, by the way, that means, well, that's over 190 million people in the United States plus is poor. And that's not really a good statistic to be looking at, especially when you consider most of us poor people are of the working class and even less. Because, well, as I keep mentioning in all of my other videos, that most of us are in that kind of condition. And it's, at this point, it is the American enslavement of their people. It's not really focused on helping the people, which is why it's $80 an hour, literally having to pay $80 every hour you talk to a psychotherapist who is there to help you. They cannot do so when we're in capitalistic America. I mean, again, like I've said before, there's a lot of people in Sweden, and they're living probably their better versions of their lives. Yes, most of them are satisfied and not happy, but I would rather be satisfied and know I'm in a good position in my life than be extremely overly happy and overly enthusiastic about every scenario I'm getting into. Oh, my family just died. Well, there's a happy substance from that. That's what Christianity and religion is trying to push you towards in general, which not a very good concept. Like, religious people, forgive people. But God gave you the ability to dislike somebody for a good reason if he does exist. And that's because there is bad people he created to have a bad outcome for a positive purpose, maybe. I don't see it that way, but you guys do, so I'm just taking out of your own words, or taking the words out of your guys' mouths. Oh, cat. Here's Sheldon, by the way. This nerd. You nerd? Yeah? You dope. But yeah, that's the thing I'm talking about, is with how many people are in the United States of America, with how many cops we have, which is 730,000, you have to keep in consideration that if over everything that I've just said before, again, keep 329.6 million people in the United States of America in your head, because the next few videos about this, I guess, podcast-like experience is going to be using as much evidence as possible to be able to prove all of my points and justify my actions and all what we have to acknowledge. But with all that aside, because that's random, just talking BS, hope you guys have a good day. Salutations to all. Like and subscribe if you like it, dislike if you dislike it, and I will see you soon. Good luck.